Well, first of all, it feels a little bit like me and Sam sitting here now. It's the day before the opening game in the World Cup. Rehearsal and practice that press conference before an opening game. It's been exciting seeing the players again. It's an amazing setup here. Everything is fantastic when it comes to the setup. So it's been a great camp that way. The challenges for us coaches has been to manage the players coming off games this weekend, and some of them playing massive amount of games coming in as well. But the sports science department and Triple SM and the players have together worked really hard to be fresh going into the games. So the tempo we had in training today was one of the highest tempo we've seen in a pre-game session, and it was tough duels, it was intensity, it was loud, it was aggressive pressing, and it was fast, and I loved what I saw out there today. So if we can bring that to the game tomorrow, it'll be exciting.
Sam, how has it been for you getting into camp and preparing for a couple of big matches?
Yeah, it's been nice, obviously around the corner for me, so it's been really nice not to have to travel, although we love going back to Oz, it's quite far, but it's been really good. Like Tony said, a lot of us have come off big matches, so it's been a camp to manage a few things, but I've really enjoyed the training sessions. Like Tony said, today was really good intensity, and looking forward to the 2 big games.
From the floor.
Sam, how much are your eyes on the World Cup at all at this stage, considering you've still got some domestic games?
I think for me, my focus is always just on my next game. So at the moment, the focus is Matildas, and it's kind of hard not to have your eyes on the World Cup when you're in camp. And every game we play in national team, we're focusing on what we're going to do at the World Cup, how we're going to prepare, all those types of things. So at the moment, my focus is on the World Cup. But obviously, when I go back to Chelsea, I try not to focus on it because I don't want to play the game before I've already even been at the World Cup. So it's finding the right balance, but it is hard not to dream a little bit sometimes when you're home alone.
And with the added, aspect that these are friendlies compared to a league match or a World Cup match, how do you approach these differently this far out, considering the World Cup's still more than a month away? Yeah,
you obviously try and do everything exactly the same and put the pressure on yourself and as a team that it is a World Cup match or a big final match. But at the end of the day, it is a practice match, and we'll be trying things and doing things that hopefully we can do in the World Cup. But we're not where we want to be in 2 months right now. And that's the plan all along, is to in 2 months be flying. So look, it is a practice match at the end of the day, but whenever we step on the field for the Matildas, we're trying to get to where we want to be. So this will be full guns blazing.
We'll continue with some questions from the floor, but when you are on, please use the raise your hand function online.
Tony, let's start off with team. You say obviously everybody's coming in, sort of playing a lot of games. How is everybody? Is anybody sort of not available for selection tonight?
First, to practice the World Cup rehearsal here, how much do you want to give away, right? Well, first of all, I think everyone knows that it was a challenge for us coming into this camp. We had an aim that this was going to be like the last chance before that World Cup assembly when we prepare for the World Cup to look at some consistency and coherency. Elliot coming back, getting into the back line and such. Unfortunately, we have a lot of injuries prior to the camp. We have about 6 very experienced players out. Over 500 caps are missing coming into the camp per se, which is a huge challenge. So we had to change our approach a little bit from saying this is going to be about coherency and consistency to now change that mindset a bit to say, okay, what last answers can we get in a World Cup selection? So that this, one door closes, another one open, and this team have been amazing about adapting to change, and we needed to do that as coaches as well. So the approach to the games is a bit different, and Sam was touching upon it, that everything we do in these games is to get answers and prepare for the World Cup. Yes, every time we step on the field we try to perform maximum, so I don't want to say it's not important to not perform well, but we need to do that with the mindset of preparing for that World Cup. So in that sense, when we look at player availabilities, there's been some load management in this camp as well with some players that we need to make sure we handle with respect, because it's all about the bigger picture, which is the World Cup.
Sam, you talked about the big games. How are you? Because I feel like you've been playing big game after big game, and it's not going to stop between now and the end of the season.
I mean, I've loved the last month. I think it's been... Anyone that knows me know I much prefer to play games than train. So we've probably had about 3 training sessions all month and just played big games. But No, it's been enjoyable. It's been really tough, but I think I've learned a lot in the last month, and I know it's different being in your clubland, but it was kind of like a World Cup setting, right? Big game after big game, every game's a knockout or a cup final. So it was a really enjoyable month, but yeah, it has been tough, honestly. We played every big team under the sun, but I feel really good, and I love playing for the national team, so I'm really excited for these two games too, and they're two big nations, and I don't think I've ever played England too, so excited about the Scotland game because, they're a tough team and they match up like we'll face teams in the World Cup. But yeah, it's going to be a good week.
Sam, you say you're not far from home. So there's a new club legend back at Chelsea as well. What was your reaction when you found out Frank Lampard was coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's exciting for him. Obviously, it's never nice to have change and all of those things, especially during the season. And I know the men's team would hope to be doing a bit better, but he's a legend of the club, so I'm sure he'd be welcomed back with open arms, and hopefully they get a result on the weekend.
So, looking forward to the World Cup, you're likely to be the potential poster goal of the tournament. You're already on the front cover of a FIFA video game. Well, I mean, what's it going to mean to you when it rolls around, the tournament as a whole, and the honour of playing a home World Cup, which a lot of players don't get to do?
Yeah, I think, like you said, not many players get to play a home World Cup, so it's going to be the biggest honour in the world to, one, represent your country, but two, at a home World Cup in front of your home fans, family and friends. But yeah, I think it's going to be hopefully a moment that's remembered in everyone's eyes for the rest of... I mean, we always talk about Kathy Freeman 2000 Olympics, and we kind of hope that no matter what happens, no matter who goes, who the 23 is, that, this team is remembered forever, and we represent Australia in the best way possible, and show that Australia can be a real footballing country, a real host of women's football. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be the best World Cup ever, and I get goosebumps every time I think about that first game.
And you've recently obviously won a tournament at home in front of your fans. What difference does it make to have that home crowd behind you as you go through a major tournament?
Yeah, I think historically the Matildas play much better at home, and I think that's due to our fans. We always have an amazing support at home. It's much nicer to be in familiar places and know where you are when you're going to the game, know the training ground, all of those things that make it familiar, make it feel like home. But I think when we play at home, the crowd gets behind us really well. We're a really well-supported team out there, so we're going to need them. And I think no matter, whenever we go home, we always turn up for our home crowd, so hopefully the same at the World Cup.
And of course, you got your first World Cup goal in the last edition of the tournament, but it was probably a premature end as far as the Matildas are concerned. Do you think this squad and you personally have got what it takes to kind of go that next level and maybe even win a home World Cup?
I think, like you said, last time we were obviously disappointed to go out, but we're just focusing on that first game. Ireland's a bloody good team. They've conceded no goals in the last 9 games. So for us, it's about taking care of one game at a time, and I think that's when you can kind of lose games in the last second or lose games in moments like a penalty shootout when you look too far ahead. And I think that was one of the biggest learning curves from the last World Cup, is maybe looking a little bit too far ahead. So this World Cup will be focusing on Ireland, focusing on what we can control, and hopefully making the crowd be that 12th man. But at the moment, the focus is to just take one game at a time.
Just one more for Sam. You've seen the way that England has embraced their national side, particularly last year. Is that something that you think can be emulated in Australia this year?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you saw the cricket world, the one-dayer out there for the women's Australian team, and they went on to win it. So Australians love getting behind Aussies, and I'm sure we'll have big crowds. You've seen with the ticket sales, there's so many girls in this team that are loved by the Aussies, and I have no doubt that the Aussies will get behind us, just like the English did, just like the French did the year before, so the World Cup before, sorry. But Aussies love a good sporting team, and I think at the moment the Matildas are one of the favourites. So, as in Aussie favourites, fan-wise. So, we're always well loved from home.
We'll head to online. Samantha Lewis.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, both. Hi, everyone. Sam Lewis from ABC down in Australia. Question for both you, Sam, and you, Tony. It's the 2-year anniversary of your first international window, Tony. I'm curious, when you look back over the last 2 years, there have been lots of ups and downs, but what would you say are the biggest lessons that you've learned over those 2 years? And same question for you, Sam.
Want me to start?
You go.
Thanks for reminding me about that camp, Sam. Obviously a tough start, as everyone knows, 5-0 and 5-2 losses. We came off a break there with COVID and had a lot of players unavailable at that time, and we started the process that was making this team, take this team to the next level. What are the learnings I've taken? One is trust the process. When you get the team to believe in what you're doing, and even though I throw them into the deep water, playing the toughest schedule ever in the history of this program, and at the same time looking at almost 60 players and almost 20 debutants, and maybe the result is not the most important at that time. It's believing in the process. But I've also learned that maybe I should have educated more people outside of the circle about that process to get another understanding of why we did what we did. That's a learning experience for me as a coach. The other thing is you'll learn about players. The more you work with them, the more you'll learn about them and how to make the best out of them as players. Because it's a national team coach. It's not about my idea and try to squeeze players into my idea. It's building a playing style on the players that I have in front of me. And I've learned a lot about the players throughout these 2 years. And you can see the progress. It's not just about getting time together. It's about me getting to know the players to get the best out of them as well. So that's some of the learnings that I've had.
I guess in 2 years it's hard to put your finger on one, learning, but I think something that has really come through that I guess we already knew about the team, but we went through COVID together, and that for me was a massive learning curve. Most of us were locked out of the country for 2 years, and we still find a way to come back and play Brazil for the first time in lockdown, and it just really showed how strong this team is. And I think after that, obviously, we played a few more games during COVID times, but I think just the resilience of this squad, I don't think since Tony's been here we've had our full squad. We've lost Ellie, we lost Steph, we lost Kaya, we've lost so many players, and it's just been ebbed and flowed the whole time. So just the resilience of this team that we've always known, but it just kind of got reminded during the past 2 years with all the challenges.
Follow up, Sam?
Yeah, one more question for you, Sam. We saw the legacy of the Women's Euros, particularly the influence of the England team, most recently getting girls to play football at schools. Do you have sort of any ideas for yourself of similar kinds of legacies you would want to leave, you want the Matildas to leave after this World Cup?
I think kind of the same. I think, like I said about the 2000 Olympics, the legacy that was left there from one special moment was everlasting for all of us. If you ask half the girls in the team, most of their hero or idol growing up was Kathy Freeman. So I think for us, that's the legacy that we want to leave, is that we inspire the nation, we move the nation to believe in women's football, believe in the Matildas. And I think, we already have, correct me if I'm wrong, the highest participation in the country. So I think it's about getting the people higher up to believe in the sport. You see the funding that AFL, rugby, all those sports get before women's football. I think it's about getting the money into football to allow girls to play, to allow girls to have the opportunities to get to where they want to be. And I think with the Socceroos' success at the World Cup, we saw the amount of funding being highlighted. So I think we have the participation, we have the love for the game, but the lasting legacy will hopefully be that we get the funding that the sport deserves.
Ben Gilby.
Just touching on what Sam's first question was to you, Sam. I mean, having played under a number of different national coaches now, what impact has Tony particularly had on you and your game in terms of, your impact?
Yeah, I think Tony came from a winning culture. I guess the US is probably the best winning culture in the world for the last 12 years, maybe. I don't know, when did they win? Yeah, 12 years. And just seeing how they've not they, but Tony has dealt with the team and dealt with individual players, and I think Tony will probably admit himself, every camp is very different, but when we get into tournament mode, it's completely different. It almost flips on its head and we go very serious, very tournament mode, and I think that's been really interesting for me to learn that there is a difference and there is a time to speed it up and slow it down, and that's something I've always struggled with in my career. I've always been speeded up. So I think just finding that balance and learning pretty quickly with the Olympics that there is a difference between tournament mode and a camp like this week.
Follow-up?
Yeah, just one more if I may quickly. Related to that, Tony, you mentioned before about trying to take some of the load off of Sam in terms of her responsibilities and that, but how did both of you sort of manage the mental and physical toll that has been going on in terms of availabilities and minute load and things like that?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm extremely impressed about Sam's ability to handle that herself. That's not about me, that's about her as a person. If you look at backing up performance after performance in clubland here, it's just amazing. It says a lot about her professionalism and character as a player. And then, like you said, sometimes I have to be the one that maybe put on the handbrake a little bit, because she and some of these winners wants to win every game and wants to practice fully every game, which is exactly what they should do, but then have the ability to sometimes listen to the SSM team and manage loads and such, and also game time. But that's always a challenge, because players should always want to play, and that's every single player, right? And then it's trying to balance that and make sure we perform as good as we can, but at the same time looking at the bigger picture and have a longer periodization plan. And the other thing I want to say is I'm really happy with the cooperation and the communication with clubs. We spent the last 18 months traveling around the world with both our physios, our sports science, our assistants, myself, to really connect with all the club teams, because it's in the clubs where most of the development of the players happens, and we have the privilege to loan them in for 9 days in a FIFA window. So we need to work very, very closely with clubs, and I'm really happy with that type of relationship and how I cooperate with clubs as well, because at the end of the day, both the clubs and us want to have the players available and firing, because that's when they can perform for both club and country.
Cameron Wiper.
Hi Tony, hi Sam. My first question is to you, Sam. So Tony was mentioning that it's been difficult for him to plan the camps because of the player availability and stuff like injuries. And he said that you've got the opportunity for the younger or more inexperienced players to have doors open for them. How do you train and how do you change your game to adapt to having to play alongside those less experienced players and help them along?
Yeah, I think it's about finding a balance of how much you need to give and how much you just need to let them grow. I think overloading with information is difficult at times, but I mean, this is a national team setup. We're a professional team. This is, you come in here to perform, and normally when people come in here, they're selected off merit and they're ready to be here. So to be honest, it's not about us players coaching them or helping them as much as you think, because normally most people that are brought in here are ready to perform, ready to play, and this is a professional environment. I think sometimes it gets a bit skewed between club and country. Everyone that's picked here is on merit and because of the way they've been performing.
Final question, Kerr.
Yeah, and just for Tony, you've got these two friendlies and then you've got the game against France in July. What do you make of Hervé Renard's appointment to the French national team?
Oh, it's difficult to comment on someone you don't know personally. What I can comment on into a general answer about changing coaches that close to a tournament. Time together is key, and I had the privilege to have time together with my national team now to get to know players, to get to know the tactics, see them perform, connect with them, get to know them as people. So in that sense, obviously they have short time and a short leading now, which is going to be a challenge for them. At the same time, we also know that sometimes a change can spark energy and new belief. And I guess that's where we don't know yet where that's going to go with the French team. And I'm intrigued and interested to see where it goes and what that French team is going to be about when we play them in July.